Good morning. This morning we're going to go over some techniques to use the uuD Dandy Dice series with heavier material. And as you can see, these are very, very small punches. And the issue comes in where your draw stud. This here is a 1/4 inch diameter draw stud, because it's the biggest that we can get inside of the punch profile. And you'll note that on this draw stud it's got 2 flats because our feature for our punch has 2 flats in it, and we had to actually take material away from the draw stud so it would take and give you proper material around the punch between the stud and the punch opening here. As you put these 2 flats on, of course, you're going to take threads off both sides of the draw stud, so you're going to have way less thread engagement here, and that's going to weaken the ability for the nut to stay on the threads here. And even on this end where you have full threads all the way around the stud, you still have very little area for the amount of force that is required with this stud. And our solution to this is these little collets here. And I don't know if you can see in the video, but there's a little wire EDM slot that goes down these collars, and these are really collets. And the way they work is you put your stud in there, and with the standard 2B class thread, there's a little bit of slop in there, and slop is always weakness. And the way these collets work is there's a little taper on this, and when they're threaded down into the draw stud here, as they tighten up, they close up all of the clearance between the collet and the stud, and it actually starts to collapse and go tight to the stud. It's very important. It gets our maximum strength we can get in our system by using this technique. And we will wind up taking and tightening this collet. And you don't have to get on this thing with a torque wrench or anything, but it just needs to be secured. So at this point in time, and you can actually see the split start to collapse a little bit, so we've taken all of the standard thread clearance out of this and virtually turned this into one piece of material. And that is the secret to this pulling system. So when we get ready to take and assemble it, before we do that, we've got to put something on the other end. So the same thing goes in play here. We'll leave the dies off for right now, and you can see the slop there, but first of all, since this is the flat end of it, we have a lot more engagement length coming into the stud, so you just have more threads available to the clamp. And then this gets a little more cumbersome when you're on a die, but the same situation is going to happen. Once we're assembled and we're ready to punch, we're going to take and get in here, and we're actually going to take and torque this nut to this flat here. Once again, taking up all of the thread clearance between the stud and the collet and virtually turning this into a single piece of steel. So we've seated the collet that's in the pulling stud end of things, and we're going to be using a Greenlee Gator here. We'll be backing out a little bit, and we'll show you more on how that works. But we're going to take and go through a complete punching operation, and this is in 16 gauge stainless, so you're going to get a real good idea of exactly how this is going to take and work. And normally this die set is only recommended to 14 gauge aluminum, So we are really stretching out towards the limits of this die assembly. So now we have the Greenlee Gator here, which is really handy. It's lithium powered. You just pull a trigger to take and actuate it, and then it's got a little release right here. So we kind of like these. There are other similar units on the market, but any light handheld one, or you can use our 201 draw cylinders, which work great with another hydraulic power source. So there's a number of ways you can pull this. We try to stick to keeping everything as universal as possible. And of course, we've already assembled this and locked this collet into the pull stud. And now we're just going to take and thread this in. It doesn't have to bottom out. Just so you got good thread engagement in it. And then this comes with the Greenlee Gator. You can add a little spacer collar to it. And now this assembly is ready to take and begin to set up for your punching operation. And of course the stud's sitting out there, and we just take the base and slide it onto the stud, and then slide the stud into the rough drilled opening, and then you insert the punch on, you put the collar on, and now you have a real secret here, is you're going to set the collar. So when you put the drive nut on here and it comes up, and now you want to make sure, you know, this doesn't have to be a torque wrench, but it doesn't have to be tight because it takes up all of the slop out of the threads. So we're now completely set up and engaged and ready to punch, and I'll bring up the Gator. And then don't want to overdrive it. If you can feel that the thing is punched through, then you're going to stop, and now we're going to go in reverse. We have to take the nut, collet off, and notice that once you break them apart, then it'll thread off just like normal. There's no big deal to it at all. And then you bring the punch out. Oops. Try not to lose them, they're real small. And then you may, depending on your clearance here, you may have to take a screwdriver and kind of pop it off, and then your slug will come out of the base, and then you basically take and repeat the operation again, and there's your funky little UHF connector, double D opening, and 14 gauge stainless. As always, if you run into any issues for technical support, you can take and go to our website, click on the help button and put in a support ticket that way, or you can call us at 888-959-7395. We hope you enjoyed the video, and you know, do bear in mind that you are at the limits for the uuD series die set, but we've got our loads down to acceptable amount, and that is a piece of 14 gauge stainless. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.